Lord knows if I might need some of these little gems. We haven't officially started yet, but I don't know, might need everything I can get here. There's a list. What do you mean we might not talk about stuff?
Well, everything is below the fold. Let's put it that way.
Well, it's because I couldn't decide, and by the way, most everything below the fold is left over from the below the fold last episode.
There is that.
So it's not made the cut twice now. All right.
Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is that you didn't really do any cutting.
Well,
it wasn't any cut.
And
never mind.
So you'll see on the list, I put on the list, one of our blocks here has just question marks. Here. One of the blocks has question marks. And like a couple minutes ago, both blocks had question marks. I finally decided I'll move one of them up there. But so this is going to be one of these episodes where I say, okay, guy, what do you want to talk about? But I will start out. All right. So you ready? We're going to start. There's a list. Anybody have any questions? Are we going? I guess we're going. Okay. So this is going to be a weird episode.
So, up for sale once, up for sale twice.
I know, right? Going, gone. So I don't know what service this comes from. Apparently it's from a service called adsbexchange.com. This is when Ida came ashore in New Orleans, and it shows almost all the aircraft are avoiding it. Logically, makes sense, right? They're all staying way outside the circle of precipitation, and that all makes sense, except for this one guy, this one aircraft. Which did someone figure out what it was?
It's a Gulfstream. Look at the picture. Look at the picture in the lower left.
Oh yeah, there we go. There is information here. Okay, so it's a Gulfstream. And it's almost flying right over the top of the eye. It's almost worse than going over the eye. And of course, according to this, it's that block says that it's at 43,000 feet. Is that what it's saying?
4525.
Oh, that's the altitude right there.
431 knots over the ground
is the speed. Okay.
The two things about this track though that are interesting.
Yeah.
One, if you look to the east of the track of the radar target itself.
Yeah.
You see it took a little bend. It was headed kind of northwest, and it took a left turn of maybe 30 degrees, and now it's headed west-northwest around the bottom side of the eye of the hurricane. Okay. Earlier, it had been pointed straight at the eye.
Well, yeah.
Or at least where this image shows the eye
exactly
relative to the radar target, our ADSB target. Okay, but he's in the headwinds portion of circulation around this low.
Well,
if he jogged to the right instead of the left, he'd be on the tailwind side. And I don't know what the cloud cover was like. I don't know what the flight conditions were like. He may be, he may have the smoothest ride available. I don't know.
Yeah, it would have been really interesting. So one presumes that he was completely above the clouds.
Presumes
on this, and I know what you're saying about headwind and tailwind. Although I don't know how that works in terms of the top of a big storm like this. Certainly those would be the winds if he was down in the clouds, down in the precip.
Any low, if you go around it counterclockwise, it's going to give you something of a tailwind.
Yeah.
And this is certainly a low pressure system.
Right. And the whole idea of the eye is that it's a sort of a column of air coming up and then going someplace. And I would imagine, depending on how close he was to the cloud deck, he would get the effect of there would probably be a wind swirl. It's kind of an interesting thing.
I don't know enough about hurricane structure to know if the winds at altitude are greater or less than or equal to the winds on the surface.
What little I know about these things is that I remember reading someplace one time about hurricanes that as the air comes up out of the center of the hurricane, it doesn't simply swirl away equally in all directions. Apparently, it can actually make sort of this almost a tornado kind of thing, a horizontal swirl of wind that almost a tail-like thing. I don't know if you're visualizing this the way I am, but it stays a column of air that then bends over on its side, and apparently that it is part of what causes a hurricane to go in the direction it goes. It's sort of like the engine of the hurricane. But so I wonder where there's a name for it. At least there was a name for it in the science fiction novel that I read.
It's a shame we don't have some.
Yeah, I know, huh? Device. But Mother of All Storms. You should read the science fiction novel Mother of All Storms, and it's pretty sobering about what climate change can do in terms of monster hurricanes. So this guy did right over the top. I see now. So obviously no TFR. Well, there might be a TFR, but this guy's on an IFR flight plan. So I
think the hurricane alone is probably enough to scare people away.
You'd think. But this guy.
And this guy's not, interfering with any recovery efforts, that's for sure.
It just strikes me as being reckless, to be honest with you. I guess, if you're at 45,000 feet and you're flying a Gulfstream, you're feeling bulletproof in many different ways. But,
I don't know. I clicked the wrong link here.
Yeah. David, you're awful quiet. What do you think about this guy flying over the top of the hurricane?
I was just looking at this radar image and noticing the Gulfstream as a 31-year-old G4. And we know it gets great maintenance because that kind of flying's got to rock its rivets.
Yeah. I don't know. See, as a VFR pilot, I'm always thinking about engine failure and, where do I land? And it's like if he had a problem at that point in the flight and had to go someplace, I don't know what you'd do. That would be an emergency.
Well, he's, obviously he's over the water. His feet are wet. He's only maybe 50 miles south of the coastline south of New Orleans.
Right.
It's hard to tell what scale this map is, but he could pull both engines back and probably make Lafayette. And if he kept going, Dallas and Houston are not far. And there's a lot of other strips, runways, et cetera, that would be easy to get to from flight level 450.
There's that as well. You're right. Yeah.
So,
okay.
You're not going to take your Cessna 152 up to flight level 450. If you were at 450 and a 152, A, good luck. B, you could probably make a lot of airports from there, even given this guy's position.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think if you're a 152 at 45,000 feet, you're not going anywhere but straight down.
You've got a whole heck of a lot of other problems.
Yeah.
I was going to say you got a thermal to beat all thermals.
Well, okay. There you go. That's a good scenario. I hadn't thought of that one because I'm thinking there's no way. It's literally impossible. But I guess
it's not. It's not impossible. It's unlikely.
Yeah.
But I mean, you find the right soaring opportunities, and you got some oxygen.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If you've done it not properly equiped, that long before you get to 45,000 feet, you're unconscious.
Personally,
anyways.
I wouldn't want to be over 250 without oxygen. I mean, without pressurization.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just work here.
Yeah. So, anyways, interesting flight profile here for this. How close do you get to weather? I mean, so all kidding aside, and Jeb, you're the one that does most flying, in different conditions these days. And I've watched your track as you go to and from various places, usually to and from Oshkosh, and you'll zig and zag to avoid storms. I mean, do you have a personal minimum for how close you're willing to get to something? How do you make that decision?
My cardinal rule for thunderstorm tactics, strategies, whatever you want to call them, and there's a lot of argument out there if you want to call X step a tactic or a strategy. But my cardinal rule is to remain in visual conditions.
Okay.
Period.
Yep.
If there's thunderstorms about, and with all the tools we have today, it's easy to find them. If you're flying through stormy weather, stay visual and stay out of those big clouds with the vertical development. That's cardinal rule number one. the few times that I have flown into the cloud, if you will, associated with a thunderstorm and whatnot, it can certainly get exciting. I've never, quote, flown into, unquote, a thunderstorm.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of clouds that I've flown into that had vertical development in them. And, as long as you're well below maneuvering speed and keep the wings level and allow your altitude to fluctuate, as long as you maintain a nose level attitude, you'll come out the other side of it.
Right.
But too often we find people who don't do those things.
Yeah.
And it's best to simply stay in visual conditions.
Yeah.
The FAA has some guidance.
Yeah, they do. They do. They want
20 miles.
20 miles is the rule of thumb.
Because thunderstorms can generate lightning miles away from where it's actually actively raining. And 20 miles is kind of the consensus that if you can see this lightning, you're too close kind of thing.
Yeah, okay. Yep. The reason I'm laughing is so many, many years ago, I was flying with a buddy home from Oshkosh, actually. This is when I still lived in California. So we were headed westbound, coming home from Oshkosh in his Bonanza. We were VFR. We were over, it was either Nebraska or Wyoming. I'm not sure, but it was in that area. And there were thunderstorms in the air. There were lines of thunderstorms, and we were watching them. Even though it was years and years ago, we had pretty good data about where the storm was and so forth. And we could also see it. All right, and its shape was actually, there was a line of thunderstorms off to our left, which is to say to the south, and we were paralleling that line. But then in the distance, the line of storms made sort of a sort of right turn, a right curve, so it was an L-shaped kind of thing, and it was broken up. It was not as well defined straight ahead, and there was a big opening, there was a big gap, and so we're flying along. And we're paying more than usual attention to where airports are nearby us, just in case we needed to get on the ground. But we're looking at this gap in the line, and we're going, we can make that gap. Let's go for that gap right there. All right. And so we're flying along, and we can make it. Yeah, we can make it. And flying along, yeah, we can make it. And all of a sudden, a big lightning strike, not hit the airplane, but off to our left in that line of storms. We suddenly saw a great big lightning strike about halfway between the line of storms and us. And we said, nope, we can't make it. We're not going. Nope, we're not making it. We're going down. And which airport's nearest? That one right there. Okay, good, land. And and so we landed,
which is a great plan.
Yeah.
Especially when storms are on the move. Land in front of them somewhere, let them blow over you.
Yep.
And motor on home.
Yeah. And that's basically what we go ahead, David.
Getting caught in a thunderstorm, that is, you didn't fly there, it happened after you got there. Picture in your mind a wine cork in your clothes washer during the agitating cycle.
Yeah, I've heard those stories. I've never done it, thank goodness. Yeah. Knock on wood. But
22 minutes of the most harrowing airtime I've ever had.
Yeah.
And it flexed the wing on the Comanche enough that it popped paint off rivet heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I got home, I took it straight over to Dead Cow for the Leprechaun to check out. I wanted to look inside and outside to make sure that there was nothing twisted, wrinkled, or misshapen, in the wing spars and the tail. And he called me up later. He says, only thing I see is you got the same row of rivets on both wings that don't have paint anymore.
Yeah, okay. So, good job. That's good piloting, David. You kept it symmetrical, right?
He says, "What the hell did you fly into?"
Yeah. So, anyways, so this Gulfstream had an interesting flight. I wonder if you did a serious search on the web, you might find pictures from the Gulfstream. It would really be a dramatic picture to have an overhead shot of this particular hurricane at this particular moment.
Yeah, that would be a interesting image.
So
anyway. It could be a NOAA Gulfstream, in which case it's probably armored. And
if you're tracking, the N number comes up registered to what's it called? People NQ, November Quebec, LLC in San Antonio.
Which is obviously some sort of aircraft holding company kind of thing.
Exactly.
But it could well be leased to NOAA. I mean, who knows how?
Well, NOAA has their own aircraft, and they wouldn't be registered November 18 TD. They'd be registered,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Something else.
Yeah.
But they would come up registered to NOAA.
Yeah. Anyways, an interesting flight.
Whatever.
And hurricane season's not over yet.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. It is not.
Yeah, there was yet another Florida one, right, Jeb? The Panhandle got hit just like yesterday.
Yeah, Mindy, I think is its tropical depression, tropical storm. It started out as just a low in the Gulf, and then became a tropical depression, and then a storm. I guess it made the cut for being a storm. They gave it a name, Mindy, and then it came ashore over the Panhandle in the Big Bend area. It moved over South Georgia, and it lost a lot of its steam, but it's headed back out over the Atlantic, and who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, and we're feeling the effects up here today of, I believe it's of Larry. Larry is I don't know if it ever made it to hurricane status, but is a storm that stayed out over the Atlantic, so it apparently isn't coming ashore.
I thought Larry made Cat 4 at one point, but it's been downgraded.
Could be. I haven't been paying attention because it was never predicted to come ashore, but apparently it's big enough that it's kind of the edge of it is affecting the eastern seaboard here again. So, anyways, hurricane season. Yeah, okay, exciting. It's like one of the many benefits of living in Florida, huh, Jeb? There you go.
Yes.
Apparently one of the benefits of living in New England.
Yeah, living everywhere these days. David, it's only a matter of time. We're going to get you a hurricane. Don't feel left out, all right? And
I don't feel left out.
We'll get you a hurricane.
Well, I fixed you up the other day. I drew that great big circle out to encompass Wichita over the projected flight path.
I know, a little Sharpie extension to the map.
Yeah,
I know, right? So there you go. That's as good as anything. All right, that's enough.
That's as good as you're going to get for free.
This falls under the heading of don't try this at home.
Yeah, really.
Exactly.
Anyways,
exactly.
All right.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, welcome, folks, to Uncontrolled Airspace, the General Aviation podcast.
Oh, we hadn't done that yet?
We have not.
I thought we were rolling.
Well, we are rolling, but this is where we say hello to everybody. And so I'm Jack Hodgson. I'm coming to you from the banks of the and with all the rain we've been having, the ever raging Cocheco River. There's been some serious flow over the waterfalls in downtown Dover. I posted some YouTube videos of that, and it's a lot of rainfall for an area that went through a drought that lasted the better part of a year. Since the beginning of July, we've had a lot of rain up here, and like you say, it's not over. So keeping busy work-wise. Let's see now. Good news, bad news. My day job work is picking up again. Longtime listeners know that my day job is in the corporate events world, supporting trade shows and conferences and that kind of thing. And with the pandemic, that industry just plain shut down. It was basically zero for the better part of a year. And it's still very, very slow, but it's starting to pick up again. And so it is picking up for me. It's kind of good news. All of this, there are people who suffered way worse than me in the pandemic. I've been very fortunate, and I don't mean to minimize the tragedy sometimes of others. But for me, it's a lot of the work that's starting to crop up for me now is all work from home stuff. Companies that I used to do on-site events have sort of reinvented themselves as supporting a lot of the online conferences that are happening these days. And so I'm doing more and more of that work, which is good. I'm glad to have the work again. I'm a very social person, though. I miss traveling out to these places and seeing people, and so that's the bad news part of it. But I am keeping busy, and that's good. More and more work happening. Jeb, you caught me sending an email to you guys at 3:00 in the morning the other day, and that was because my sleep schedule is totally out of whack now because I've been supporting a project that's 24/7 all around. Helping people all over the world, and so basically I'm keeping all kinds of weird hours. I was wondering
about that.
Oh man, I'm keeping all kinds of weird hours. I this coming weekend I do 2 Saturday and Sunday. I do midnight to 8 a.m. Anyways, That's my thing. I'm continuing to do my Around the Field email newsletter. It's chugging along nicely. Just so to give you guys a little background, the goal of the newsletter is to report on the activities of grassroots flying around the country. It's sort of a newsy activities reporting, current events kind of equivalent to the stories that I used to do in the EAA daily newspaper. So it's very grassroots flying oriented. It's very small airports. It's very small airplanes and that kind of thing. And so in the newsletter, I'll report on various happenings around the country, interesting airports that you might fly to, upcoming activities at some of these airports, occasionally a product report that might be of interest to grassroots pods, that kind of thing. So that's sort of the editorial, goal or whatever you want to call it of the Around the Field email newsletter. You can check out the current issue and all of the past issues at aroundthefield.net, and please subscribe. It's free. I'm here in the virtual hangar talking to my two good friends, and we're going to find out what they're up to, too. First of all, from the air capital of the world, Wichita, Kansas, is Dave Higdon. Good morning, David. How are you doing?
Doing okay.
Yeah. In knowing you, you're probably keeping busy. Even not having gone to Oshkosh, I'm sure you've got a lot of things on you. What is it you like to call it? Your dance card. That's what it is, yes.
I'm working on my 5th and 6th stories to finish this week. It's just been turning and churning and getting stuff out. And woke up this morning and looked the outside air temperature thermometer, and it said 58 degrees.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, this can't be September in Kansas. But check the calendar, and son of a gun, it is September in Kansas and unusually comfortable. So we're enjoying that.
Nice. Nice.
Insert R-rated comment at this point.
Yeah, okay. We tease you, David, about hurricanes, but obviously for you it's tornadoes. It feels like from the news we hear up here that it's been a relatively quiet tornado season, at least for Kansas. Is that true? Or
Yeah. There have been a couple of small ones, but they were out in the part of Kansas where the only people that care are the cows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I've heard that. Yeah, it's all the mask wearing that we're doing is kind of knocking down the tornado. That's a flu joke. I'm sorry. Anyways, I'm glad the tornadoes have been good for you, or been not good, have been not bad for you, have been good for you. That's cool.
Well, we had a boomer of a storm last weekend that kind of foreshortened the Labor Day long weekend, but we got about 2 inches of rain at my place in about 3 hours.
Yeah.
It was just no wind, though. Hard, steady rain, and my yard loved it. And yesterday I had the young couple that does the mowing for me over here, and they made it look all spiffy, like I actually pay attention.
You need to get yourself one of them fancy riding mowers that Jeb's got. Jeb, well, anyways. Very cool, David. And my other good friend here in the virtual hangar from somewhere near Sarasota, Florida, is Jeb Burnside. Good morning, Jeb.
Good morning, Jack.
What's going on with you? I'm sorry, I'm teasing you about your life. I still haven't had a chance to actually, for years you used to torment me fairly. I mean, every time I'd visit you, you'd say, you're going to mow the lawn, Jack, right? And I would have. I just never did. A lot of the time back in those days, your riding
But it was
mower,
so much fun.
Well, back in those days, your riding mower was always broken because you had an old one, an old one. All right.
I don't remember it ever being that broken, but go ahead.
Well, it was non-operational. No, I think it was. Anyways.
I remember us putting a new rear end in it, but
yeah, we did a number of different things. Anyways, yeah. but you've since solved that problem by buying one of these fancy, funky, cool little dual stick. What are those things called?
Zero turn radius. ZTR.
Yeah. That sounds like fun. And I think you had it the last time I visited, I didn't get a chance to ride it. Excuse me. I mean, mow your lawn with it. And so.
Yeah, I'm still disappointed.
Okay. Anyways, I'm sorry. What's going on with you? How you doing? You working on anything fun or?
No, I've been trying to take it easy, tackle some things around the house, but catch up on some streaming on the television and run some errands and try not to worry about the rest of the world. I can't do much about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
what are you watching? I recently caught up with Ted Lasso. I really, that's an Apple TV thing. You might not get that. But Ted Lasso is a lot of fun. What else? You're into this Expanse thing, aren't you?
Yeah, yes is the quick answer.
Yeah.
I enjoy that. My science fiction fix. Recently finished Bosch.
Okay.
A couple of other series like that I pay attention to. I'm starting to get to the end of my rope, and I'm waiting for some new seasons for some of these programs, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that and some DVDs occasionally. Catch up on stuff I haven't I flick through Netflix now. I say, yeah, I got that DVD. I got that one too. And it's like, I'm not going to stream that and use up bandwidth if I can just play the DVD. And then it's like, well, I got to get up off the couch to do that though.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I know. You need right. Yeah. Okay.
I don't have a DVD jukebox. I can just press another button or something.
But if anybody would benefit from it, would be you. That would be great.
Absolutely.
If you need some sort of big robot thing that keeps all your DVDs and slots them into the drive. Yeah, that would be great.
That would be yeah. Of course, we do have that in a sense. We call it
the internet.
Video on demand and streaming and yada yada. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, that sounds cool. Okay. All right.
So that's kind of what I've been up to lately.
Cool. Well, that's it, folks. We're done. That's everything was on the list.
Yep, thanks for coming.
Yeah. No, it's a very short list this week. What did I do? Let's see. Now I called attention to one other item here.
Yeah, the aircraft aesthetics.
Yeah,
what's the most beautiful aircraft?
Beautiful airplanes. All right, so this is a list I came across on some site, someplace. Let's see now. It was in Reddit. I'm reading more and more Reddit these days, and I came across a Reddit article. Let me open it up here so I can describe it accurately. In the aviation subreddit, I believe is what they call it, r/aviation. The headline is "Aesthetics are subjective, but what do you think is the most beautiful aircraft ever made?" And if you want to wade through the comments, and there are currently 1.7 thousand comments, and I did not wade through them all. The original poster suggested that the Constellation that he pictured here is the most beautiful.
Lockheed Super Connie. And that's a great candidate.
It is a great candidate. No question about it.
It is still photographed. It still looks like it's doing Mach 1.
Yeah. So that's one. Do you guys, and this is a hard question. I mean, this is a really hard question, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do anything other than punt when I'm asked. But do you guys have a thought on what's, Dave's going to say, I predict Dave's going to say the one that you're flying right now. That's not an acceptable answer. What's a beautiful airplane? Maybe not the most beautiful, but name a beautiful airplane from your perspective. Jeb, Dave, who wants to go first?
Dave, go ahead.
I'm thinking.
Oh, okay. Beach Stagger Wing.
That's a good one. Okay.
That's a great one.
De Havilland Comet.
Very much so.
It was a beautiful airplane. It's so tainted by its aviation.
They fixed that, and the later marks were did not have that problem, but it was basically replaced by another candidate for most beautiful airplane, which is the 707.
Yeah, that's an interesting choice. It's not unbeautiful for sure.
I like the 707. It's got some Art Deco things going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's also got space age stuff going on. First, swept wing. Well, I don't know. I guess the Comet was swept wing too, or a little bit swept. But 707 just, and for that matter, I guess too, the 727. Are I don't know, most beautiful, certainly most iconic.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 787 noses its way into this list.
Yeah,
I do too.
Particularly when it's in the air.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The amount of flex in the wings just staggers me. Of course, it's composite airframe, so it's able to do that without stressing anything. But when they brought one to AirVenture a few years ago, was just stunned looking at the crowds that were up next to it. You know, they're touching it. It's like, wow. But then when it took off to leave the area, holy cow.
Yeah, now that's interesting. And I wonder if you have the same memory I do. I think the three of us were together.
Yep.
And we were standing up on someplace near the old terminal building.
We were in the parking lot.
Yeah. All right. When the 787 departed, and it departed on the northbound runway, and climbed out right over our heads and kind of banked away a little bit, as I recall. Yeah. And I think the three of us were just standing there with our mouths open a little bit, you know, going, "Wow, that's really beautiful."
Yeah, the long, slender wings on that airplane, plus the trailing edges of the engine nacelles, are both very individual, very individualistic of that particular airplane. The nose is a little bit individual too. It still has that basic Boeing transport greenhouse, but the nose is shaped differently from, say, a 707 or, well, let's run the roll. The 707, the 720, the 727, the 730, 737, and even I think the 757 have pretty much the same, certainly the same fuselage cross sections, but also very similar, if not identical, noses.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, moving away from, you know, big transport aircraft, I like the lines of the Cirrus jet. I think that's kind of an attractive airplane. Do you remember the Eclipse concept single engine jet?
Oh yeah.
I for some reason I came across a picture. Somebody posted a picture of that this past summer. I don't know if it was associated with Oshkosh or not, and I hadn't seen a picture of it in quite some time. That was a very attractive airplane in my view. I've always been very, very partial to things like, I think the Champ is a really beautiful airplane. I just think the Champ is, the shape and the lines and it's not a sleek, sexy, I mean, it is kind of sexy, but, it's not sleek in the way that a Constellation is sleek. But
you and I have different versions of sexy.
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. So I like the Champ. I've always liked the Bird Dog, L-19, I believe, the L-19 Bird Dog, which for this has in a different size and obviously different mission, but similar to the Champ. It will come as no surprise that I think the Cessna 150s are very, very beautiful. It's funny because since I've returned to flying, to the extent I've returned, I've been flying 172s. 172 Drew was a big influence to me in this regard. And so I went back to flying in the 172s. And I like the 172 better than I did back in the day. I think I've told stories about my 172 experiences in my early days as a pilot. But I was flying a 172. In recent months, for some strange reason, I've suddenly started coming across pictures and of 150s and 152s, and it just, I don't know, touches me. It rings a bell for me. Even though the 150s and the 172s are so similar, they're to my eye, they're different enough. I think the 150 is a really beautiful airplane. I like the 150, particularly the later models that have a little bit more swept tail, and a little bit more shapely cowling. Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm talking about? And so that's those are some of my suggestions. What about GA airplanes for you guys? Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. It's an unfair question. Go ahead. Yeah, David.
The Lancer.
Lancer was a beautiful airplane. Is a beautiful airplane, I guess. I don't see them as much as I used to. I don't know why that is. It was
they made a factory one, and that wound up getting sold to Cessna, and Cessna very quickly stopped producing it. So
yeah.
But in terms of GA airplanes, I think a B-35B Bonanza is just a killer looking airplane.
And I'm going to come right back with the Comanche is a good looking airplane.
Okay. I agree with the Comanche and the Bonanza one, but yeah.
I think we've gotten a little bit astray here. I mean, the the aesthetics is what we were really discussing, and the most beautiful aircraft ever made. And I think that's a very high bar to clear.
Yeah. No, I agree. So.
I'm not saying that none of the, I'm not saying the V-tail or the Comanche wouldn't qualify, or even the 150, although we have to have a chat, Jack. But to me, those are not the most beautiful. The Beech 18 is another candidate, I think.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for that matter, the King Airs, the Barons, those are all very good looking airplanes to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's all that going on.
Where did the line come from?
Say again?
Say again, David?
I was trying to think of who came up with a line for an airplane to fly. It has to be beautiful. Serge Dassault.
Yeah.
A Frenchman.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll leave it to him.
Yeah. And there's a great deal to that. If it looks good, it'll probably fly good.
Yeah.
Yes, but actually fly good, not just seem like it's flying good because you think it's beautiful.
That's what I'm. Yeah.
Right.
I agree. I mean, I'm trying to think of.
We sort of have an innate sense of aerodynamics, if you will, and something that is successfully aerodynamic, we think looks beautiful as well. I think that's my theory here. Yes, no.
I think we'd have to throw the Cirrus piston singles into that.
I think you would too. I'm not sure I concur with Jack on the Vision Jet. And I'll pull up here an image of the Eclipse 400 and look at it. Yeah, okay. It looks a lot like the Cirrus, and the Cirrus Jet, for all it is, I mean, by all accounts, it's a great airplane.
Mm-hmm.
It does exactly what Cirrus wanted it to do. It has a parachute. It has all the automation you could ask for in a single engine or in a personal airplane. It just in the Eclipse 400, which is what we're talking about here, the single engine Eclipse mock-up or prototype. It just looks clunky to me with the single engine mounted high atop the fuselage and forward of the tail. But it just looks like it's kind of tacked on.
Yeah. All right. Now, so that's not unfair. And I have to confess that I've made my projection from memory. And so now I've called up a bunch of pictures of the Cirrus Jet. And no, I'm going to stick to my. I hear you, and everybody's entitled. Yeah. I like the look. I like the lines. I like the shape.
Now the Eclipse Twin, the Eclipse 500, 550, whatever they're calling it now, that's not a bad looking airplane. It's not in my top 10 of the most beautiful airplanes. But it's not a bad looking airplane.
Yeah. I think I saw a bunch of those this year. I think it was at Oshkosh for the first time in a long time. I think I saw multiple of them on the ramp at Oshkosh, which is not terribly surprising. But
when you get to the end of the line and you're ready to pay up, I've got to come back to the Connie. It may partly be because I've been lucky enough to fly in one 3 or 4 times, and. Twice it was in airline service in Brazil. Walking into that cabin was like walking back 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
But 3 tails, 3 vertical surfaces, an elliptical wing, kind of semi-elliptical wing, and that almost dolphin-like hump of the fuselage. It's just killer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't disagree, dude. I don't disagree at all. Anyways, all right. Any final thoughts here before we move on?
No, not really. I mean, de Havilland had some interesting designs.
Yeah.
Some of their piston twins. I'm looking at a DH-89 Dragon. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation here. Rapide. Basically, it's a biplane with 2 inline engines mounted over the landing gear on the bottom wing, and it's got a funky nose, and it's tapered wings and that kind of thing. It's just a
it's in that class like the stagger wing.
Yeah, its lines are a little bit. I don't know. There's a combination of angles and curves that in my book kind of works, but it might not be for everybody, kind of thing. The stagger wing is all curves, and that's what makes it. And of course, the Art Deco thing is in its DNA too. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful airplanes out there. The Cirrus singles certainly qualify.
Yeah. Okay. Well, very cool. Very cool.
So that's it. That's all we have to talk about, because that's the only thing on the list.
Well, yeah, I know. No, hang on. This is on the subject of exquisite or aesthetics. If you
Easy
like what
for you to say.
No, not at all. If you like what we're doing with this podcast, if you think it is exquisite or even in that direction,
or even just merely attractive.
Yeah, right. Merely attractive, handsome, as they say. Please consider supporting it, us and this podcast with a financial donation. As little as a few dollars a month really helps us in doing this podcast. You can send individual donations to the UCAP tip jar via PayPal. Big thanks to a few recent PayPal tip jar supporters: Lyndon N., Michael S., Michael F., and David W., and everyone else who's ever given us a tip jar thing. Thank you. Or you can become an automatic monthly supporter via Patreon. Thank you to some of our Patreon supporters. Let's see, Bennu, someone who just goes by the name Bennu, Bennu, William H., Jonathan H., Jennifer H., lots of H's, Colin C., Patricia S., Grant P., Jan S., and everybody else who supports us on Patreon. We really, really appreciate that. Thank you. You guys are the best. For more information about providing automatic monthly support, you can check out patreon.com/uncontrolledairspace, or you can make a PayPal donation to the email address podcast@uncontrolledairspace.com. You can get all this information by clicking the box in the right-hand column of the UCAP UCAP homepage. That's at uncontrolledairspace.com. Thank you to everyone who supports us. What else? Here, I'm going to put a link in the chat. I was just thinking about this when I was thinking about Reddit. Let's see now. So there's a Reddit link. See if you guys can open that. So this came up across. This is another r/aviation subreddit post of a video, probably a TikTok video, of an airplane that has its engine being run up, but it's not sitting on its gear because its wheels are either retracted or removed. It's some combination of standing on jack stands and or hanging from an engine crane. And they're doing a run up of the engine, and the headline is "What could go wrong?" ? Now I took some grief in Reddit here for suggesting that this was actually computer graphics, that this wasn't a real image, and the Reddit community did not like me suggesting that this was fake. And I'm not saying for sure that it's fake. I'm just saying it seems so implausible that it could be fake. My big evidence for it being fake is that there's no shadow of the airplane. That the engine stand casts a shadow, but the airplane doesn't cast a shadow on the floor. And so I don't know, but
I get what you're saying. I don't know, but I would like to know where this was and who was in charge of this, so I will never use them for my airplane maintenance.
I know, huh? It's crazy. It's like, and I don't know whether that engine hoist is actually supporting the weight of the airplane. Or...
what it is you've got the jack stands there.
Oh, that's right. You need a third point, don't you?
You need a third point to balance, and the engine is the heaviest part of the... Let me put it another way. Yeah, pretty much the heaviest part of the airplane, but the engine, the front of the airplane is where it's going to tilt.
Right.
If you took that engine stand away, and basically they've just got it hooked to the lift ring on top of the engine, and that's just insane.
Yeah,
the whole
crazy.
thing is just insane.
And I mean, even if you put the propeller at zero pitch, so that it's not theoretically not producing any thrust. Just the torque alone is going to make this thing do unpredictable things.
Yeah, well, there's that, and the typical prop installed on that airplane will not go to zero pitch.
Oh, really?
It will not.
I didn't know that. Okay.
It'll go to a very fine pitch, but it won't go to zero, or it won't feather.
And by the way, that's another argument I have, is that the debris on the ground didn't move when he ran up the engine. Okay. There's not much, but the floor is basically clear, but there are some things on the floor, and I haven't watched this thing in a couple. Let me play it again. This could get crazy.
Does it have audio?
I don't know. Yes and no. It has music for some reason. Yeah, see, nothing's moving on the floor. I'm not buying this. I think it's CGI. I think they shot an airplane on the ramp and then did some.
No, I think they shot the airplane in the hangar, but then they started turning the propeller. I don't know.
Yeah. I see what you mean. They supered a moving propeller, and that could have been true too. That may be the way they did it. But
yeah,
anyways.
And I can certainly see them using an engine crane, although I wouldn't be the way I would do it. I can certainly see them using an engine crane to balance the airplane on jacks.
Yeah.
But starting the engine on, I don't think so, man.
I know.
What do you think?
Yeah. And if it's real, it's foolish. Yeah.
Pardon my French, but
I'll
holy
fix
Christ.
that. But yeah, that's just nuts, David. You obviously, but David, you'd do this. Right? It's like, I was talking with someone recently about the caricatures that we've created over the years, and David's was, David, will David fly that? David will fly anything.
Like, I've got a coffee mug that says just the opposite.
Yeah. Even David wouldn't fly that. Is that what it's? Yeah,
that's
right.
The one. Thank you, Jeb.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeb.
Not even Dave would fly that.
Not even Dave would fly that. There we go. See, that's my point. Yeah. This is kind of crazy the way this is. Any thoughts, David, before we move on here? Not that we've got anything to move on to.
The only thing that looks wilder is a single blade prop.
Yes.
Yeah. Well. Yes. Single blade prop is weird, but if you balance it right, it's no different, right? It's
Well, it's supposed to be the most efficient, cleanest.
Right, because you don't have multiple blades interfering with each other, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. Anyways,
well, make it a pain to hand prop.
Well, yeah.
Which we do not recommend.
Okay. Yeah. So anyways, that's a weird picture. I don't know
I'm glad you shared that. I think.
Yeah. So, Yeah, because when you first look at the image, the first time I looked at it anyways, I didn't notice the jack stands. I thought that the whole thing was just hanging from the engine lift. But no, if you look closely again, and there's these two big tall jack stands under the wings. Anyways.
But I totally get your comment about the shadow. There's no shadow of the airplane on the floor.
Yeah, there's clearly a shadow of the engine hoist
and both jacks.
Yeah, but there's no shadow of all of the airplane, and the fact that the debris on the floor of the hangar doesn't move. It's got to be some breeze being generated.
No, well, not only is there a breeze being made here, but it's maybe 30 feet to the back wall of this hangar, this structure it's in. And that's got to be moving a lot of air, and that air is going to be coming back around the corners
and move the airplane.
Yeah. That water bottle over there on the left side, about midway up, that's going to have to get knocked over.
Yeah, so
if it's moving in the air, so
that air's got to go somewhere.
So I stand by my claim of the high likelihood of this being CGI.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I might call blowing snow on this one.
Yeah. So, but the Reddit crowd didn't like it at all. They were really unhappy.
Oh, I'm not liking it either. But
no, I mean, they didn't like me claiming that it was CGI. They didn't like me claiming that it was fake. Apparently, I was, So I actually got demerits. That's the way it works in the Reddit world: is you get upvoted and downvoted. And my comment got seriously downvoted.
Reason 37 of why I'm not on Reddit.
Yeah, well, there's some interesting stuff on Reddit. You got to stay away from the scary parts. But
I get it.
Quite frankly, this aviation subreddit I find interesting, and a few others of interests of mine. But yeah, Reddit's quite a wide world, and there's some scary, ugly stuff in Reddit. But the good stuff is good. I it's worth looking at, I think. Anyways,
so The other thing that we're not going to get to.
What is it? Yeah. What else are we not going to get to?
Yeah. Is in Mars Ingenuity. I think we're due for an update.
Yeah. I remember us talking about this, but I think we talked about it after the fact or before the fact.
Well, we talked about it before and after its first flight on Mars.
No, but I mean, last episode. I don't think we talked about it during the episode.
I don't think we talked about it at all, but I don't remember. But just a kind of a post-it note for everybody. Mars Ingenuity has now made its 13th flight on Mars.
It's just awesome. Yeah, I know, right?
It's achieved a maximum speed of slightly over 22 miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, the most recent flight. No, I'm sorry. The first flight was 39.1 seconds, but I'm getting bad links here on like the flight log doesn't have the official NASA flight log doesn't have the 13th flight filled in yet, which is, I haven't filled in some flights in my logbook either, but that's the link I want right there.
Mm-hmm. You got to hand, for all of NASA's shortcomings, and it has some, but they're doing some great work, particularly on these Mars Explorer, craft. With the rovers have just been so remarkably robust. And now Ingenuity is another example of this. It's like, it was spec'd to do 5 flights, I think 6 flights, something like that. And like you said, now it's
another one.
And now it's up to 13. And it's gone beyond the pure, so the original spec, the original experimental goal was to simply see whether or not you can fly on Mars in its thin atmosphere. And after they concluded that works just fine, now it's gone, and it wasn't intended, other than that, it wasn't intended to have any scientific mission, but now it's actually starting to be purposed for supporting the underlying rover, whose name I'm blanking on now. What's the name of that rover? Too bad we don't have a device here.
Oh, it's a shame in this day and age. Perseverance.
Perseverance. Thank you. And so now it's like it's scouting routes for Perseverance. Apparently, they actually, they had tentatively planned to send Perseverance along a particular route on the surface of Mars, and they sent Ingenuity to look at that route from the air, such as it is air, and on the basis of the data they got back from Ingenuity, they realized that it wasn't worth it. That there wasn't anything to look at in that direction, and so they went off on a different direction. So Ingenuity is just remarkable, and just imagine what it's going to be like when they actually, put a aircraft on Mars that's intended to do some great things.
Well, I mean, they're already doing great things.
But I mean, when they're doing great things with an aircraft that was meant to be incredibly simple, when it gets to be, okay, we're babbling here, but Ingenuity is good. What else?
The other thing going on here, though, you asked, are NASA ops considered general aviation?
I did ask that. I'm trying to recall what was the circumstances of me asking.
I don't know why you asked that question, but the quick answer is probably not, in that it's a public aircraft. Anything that NASA operates is considered a public aircraft and basically implies government. So it wouldn't fit in that technical category under some classifications. But it's clearly non-commercial. You could argue it both ways, I guess, whether it's non-military. You can't argue that it's non-public. So generally you think GA is private, and that's generally going to be true, but there's a lot of what we consider to be general aviation operations that are conducted by public aircraft owners. Mm-hmm. And how you split that baby is right beyond this podcast.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember. I did add that question in the category of this Ingenuity flight. I'm not sure exactly why. It may have just been a general question, because we've always said that the definition of general aviation was everything except military and the airlines. And I guess I was just kind of curious whether NASA was considered military. For example, is Air Force One? Well, Air Force One is Air Force, so that's not GA. Okay.
Hence the name.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. I'm trying to think of another example. Are there any federal government
space shuttle?
Space shuttle is an interesting case. Would that have been? That's general aviation.
Well, space shuttle again is certainly public, and there are.
Well, again, that's
there were, I should say, military missions, so that would be a military operation.
Well, and the military shuttle for sure would not be GA.
For sure.
But the NASA shuttle, all right. I mean, so okay. Is SpaceX's Dragon?
Well,
aircraft.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Is that general aviation?
That clearly, to me, is general aviation. It's a private operation.
Yeah.
It is not commercial in nature, although they want to be commercial in nature.
No, SpaceX is definitely commercial. They're making a lot of money carrying people and gear to the ISS.
Oh, okay. That's completely different. Yeah. Is that general aviation?
And launching satellites. And no, SpaceX is an incredibly successful example.
Right. I was thinking like
You're thinking of this new Starship thing that they're still experimenting with. Yeah, right. Although they're making a lot of money. They got that contract from NASA to take things to the moon eventually. That Amazon, not Amazon, but Bezos is disputing in court. And you heard this, right?
Yeah, I saw something about that.
This goes back about 3, 4, 5 months or so.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But NASA or the Fed, some form of the federal government, I think it was NASA, contracted or tentatively contracted with SpaceX to have this Starship aircraft carry people and stuff to the moon. It's a brave new world, man. It's a brave new world. And I don't know whether space flight, now this is the larger question. Should space flight be considered part of general aviation? David, you're awful quiet. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My old boss at Air Transport World magazine, he dubbed the space shuttle the world's largest GA aircraft.
Okay.
And with a hell of a payload, but it qualifies on all the points. I mean, it's non-scheduled. It's privately operated. It goes where it wants to when it needs to go there. And it's got room to take along a few friends as long as they have their own spacesuit.
In the latter days of the space shuttle, they didn't even wear spacesuits, right? They were all wearing jumpsuits.
But you just want to avoid one thing.
Yeah,
and that's any encounter with an Illudium Q-36 explosive space modulator. That would ruin your day.
I hate it when that happens. I know. Yeah. Okay.
I thought those had been mostly phased out, but there might still be some in circulation.
Well, there's that one that's flying over LA on the approach to LAX. So there's that. I think that's what that is. Maybe, you never know.
Yeah. You never know.
I mean,
who can tell anymore?
They won't tell us what it is. So I submit that it's that. I don't know.
Well,
by the way, in post-production, I will be Googling whatever it was David just said.
The Illudium Q-36 explosive space modulator.
All right, and now I'm comparing to see whether he said it the same both times. Okay. All right. What else? Are we done?
All you're doing, Dave, is just increasing his workload.
I know. Right.
It's like putting him in a round room and telling him to go stand in the corner.
Yeah. Yep. I will. I think we're done. I think it's.
You're looking at all the fast forwarding and rewinding you have to do to get this episode out the door.
Yeah, I know. Okay, all right. Anyways, thank you guys. It's always a blast. I've got a script in front of me and I still don't know where to go next. That's Jeb Burnside. Jeb's a freelance aviation writer and editor, serving as the editor-in-chief of Aviation Safety Magazine. He's also a regular contributor to other aviation publications. Online, you can find Jeb's work at aviationsafetymagazine.com. His magazine is on Twitter as avsafetymag, and you can find his other work at aea.net and avweb.com. On Twitter, he is Burnside J. And Dave Higdon. Dave is an aviation photographer, an aviation journalist, and the U.S. editor for London's Av Buyer magazine. You can find his work online at avbuyer.com and aea.net. On Twitter, he is Real Higdon. And I'm Jack Hodgson. I'm a private pilot, a freelance writer, and a digital media producer online. You can find me in most of the usual places with the all one word username Jack Hodgson. For example, Twitter, Jack Hodgson, YouTube, Jack Hodgson, Patreon, Jack Hodgson. You can find my ebooks on Amazon by searching for Around the Field in the books section, and you can sign up for the Around the Field email newsletter at aroundthefield.net. Hey, David, was there something you want to tell us?
Well, if you're old enough to remember this quote, you're probably doing some flying, because time spent flying is not subtracted from your lifespan. Illudium Q36 Explosive Space Modulator.
That's enough talking. Let's go flying.
And always remember to fly the airplane with your head, not your hands.
Wherever it is, I don't like it, and I'm getting out of here. Hey, maybe that character wearing a spittoon can help me.
At last, after 2,000 years of work, the Illudium Q36 Explosive Space Modulator.
Pardon me, sir, but could you...
At long last, my dream come true.